Hey everyone, ready to dive deep into the world of No Other Land? Released on March 10, 2024, this film has sparked endless discussions, and today, we're uncovering every thrilling detail. If you enjoy this deep dive, don't forget to hit that like button. It really helps us grow. And for more incredible movie explorations and hidden gems, subscribe to the channel. Now, let's unravel the magic behind this cinematic masterpiece. No Other Land, 2024, hit the big screen on February 21, 2024, with the kind of quiet intensity that demanded the world take notice. It wasn't just another documentary. It was a window into a world rarely seen and a bold call to see the land it depicts through a lens of compassion, understanding, and urgency. As the credits rolled at its premiere at the 74th Berlin International Film Festival, audiences were left to digest a complex narrative that spanned 4 years of personal struggle, national identity, and the intimate lives of those who find themselves on the front lines of history. The film's unveiling was not merely a cinematic event but a cultural moment, one that felt like it was meant to speak to our current political moment in ways that transcended borders. At its core, No Other Land is more than a documentary about the ongoing Israeli-Palestinian conflict. It's a film that marries the deeply personal with the brutally political, wrapped in the subtle, sweeping visuals of a land that has long been torn apart by violence, yet is presented with such tenderness and grace that viewers are compelled to see it through new eyes. Its story begins with Basel Adra, a young Palestinian activist from the village of Sefer Yatta in the occupied West Bank, a region constantly threatened by Israeli military expansion and the destruction of Palestinian homes. What begins as a recounting of his journey to document the Israeli military's repeated destruction of his family's home slowly unfurls into a larger, more universal tale of displacement, identity, and resistance. Basil's story could have been one of tragic loss and hopelessness, as so many narratives from the region can seem. But this film avoids sentimentality. Instead, it brings us into the trenches with its subjects, humanizing their struggles. As Basil's footage begins to accumulate, it becomes clear that this documentary is far more than a cold political statement. It's an intimate exploration of the resilience of a people trying to hold onto their land, their homes, and their culture. His personal journey as a son, a brother, and an activist unfolds right before the viewer's eyes, in moments of grief and defiance, and eventually, a kind of reluctant friendship with an unlikely counterpart. Yuval, an Israeli journalist who stumbles upon Basil's story while covering the broader situation in the West Bank. What transpires from there is a meeting of minds. Two individuals from opposing sides of a bitter and bloody conflict, struggling to understand each other, while also coming to terms with the deep divides that separate their worlds. The power of No Other Land lies in its ability to tackle this complex political situation not with judgment, but with an open hand, offering space for the viewer to interpret, feel, and grapple with the realities that both Basel and Yuval are forced to confront. This unlikely bond between a Palestinian and an Israeli isn't the softening of politics. Instead, it's the collision of two hard truths. This relationship, like the land itself, is fragmented, contentious, and, at times, deeply uncomfortable. The film uses these moments of tension to pull us deeper into the layers of its subject matter, pushing us to understand the consequences of occupation from all sides, without reducing any of the individuals involved to mere political pawns. This humanizing approach makes the film not only relevant but revolutionary in its execution. The visual style of the film is striking in its understated yet evocative approach. The Palestinian countryside, with its sprawling hills and valleys, its shattered homes and dusty roads, becomes a character in itself, just as integral to the story as Basel and Yuval. Every shot feels meticulously crafted, capturing the devastating beauty of the landscape as it shifts between moments of despair and defiance. The cinematography presents a land that is both serene and scarred, a poignant metaphor for the ongoing conflict. Basil's personal footage, captured on handheld cameras in the midst of his struggle, adds a rawness to the narrative that's impossible to ignore. There's no gloss, no filter between the viewer and the people and places shown on screen. Every frame is a piece of history, a fragment of the ongoing battle between power and survival. What makes No Other Land particularly remarkable is its exploration of the intersection of personal and political histories. The destruction of homes in Motifs isn't just about the loss of physical structures. It's about the erasure of lives, of culture, of future generations' connection to the land. The way in which Basel documents the destruction, and the way in which the film includes these deeply personal moments of anguish, paints a picture of a population living under siege, fighting not just for survival but for dignity. The physical displacement is matched by the emotional dislocation the characters feel. Basel's evolving relationship with his land and with Yuval becomes a metaphor for the larger, fractured relationship between Israelis and Palestinians. But it isn't just Basel's footage that makes the film stand out. It's the unexpected friendship between him and Yuval, which serves as one of the most captivating narrative threads in the documentary. Yuval, a Jewish-Israeli journalist, enters Basel's life after coming across the footage of the destruction in Motifs. His initial intent is to report on the situation, but what he finds is a much more personal story unfolding before him. The tension between his professional role as an observer and his evolving relationship with Basel is palpable throughout the film. Their interactions, sometimes awkward, sometimes heated, but always filled with mutual curiosity, become a meditation on the difficulty of understanding the other in a conflict as entrenched as this one. The film allows the two men to confront their differences, but it never offers easy answers, underscoring the complexities of the conflict and the emotional toll it takes on those involved. In a world where political narratives can often become oversimplified or distorted, No Other Land refuses to give in to any notion of easy resolution. The film takes the viewer deep into the heart of the West Bank, but it never paints its subjects as victims. Instead, it invites us to see them as people who continue to resist not out of hopelessness, but out of a profound belief in their right to exist, to have a future, and to be seen. Their stories are layered with grief, yes, but also with resilience and defiance. The film's refusal to offer simplistic solutions, its honesty about the limits of human connection amidst political realities, is part of what makes it so extraordinary. As No Other Land made its way through the festival circuit and found its place in theaters around the world, it became more than just another entry in the documentary genre. It became a cultural phenomenon, something that left audiences reflecting not just on the state of the world, but on the humanity within it. Its ability to engage with complex political questions while never losing sight of the personal stakes is what sets it apart from other films of its kind. The film becomes, in a sense, a kind of testament, not just to the enduring struggle of Palestinians in the West Bank, but to the possibility of connection in a world that often seems divided beyond repair. For those who have yet to see the film, No Other Land is more than just a movie to watch. It's a call to understand, a plea to see the complexities of a situation that can feel overwhelming in its weight. The relationships and moments captured on film linger long after the credits roll, forcing viewers to reckon with their own perspectives on conflict, on identity, and on the power of storytelling. It's a story that transcends its particular context, touching on universal themes of belonging, resistance, and the relentless fight to preserve one's identity in the face of erasure. This film doesn't just ask for empathy, it demands it. No Other Land doesn't just depict a people and a place. It challenges us to see them as they are, alive, vibrant, and worthy of their place in the world's story. As the second half of No Other Land, 2024, unfolds, the stakes escalate, tensions deepen, and the quiet intensity of Basel and Yuval's journey reaches a boiling point. The documentary, having spent its first half introducing the complex and intimate struggles of the Adra family, their fight to stay in Motifs, and the emerging bond between Basel and the Israeli journalist Yuval, now sets the stage for a confrontation of not only political ideologies but of deeply personal identities. The raw, visceral footage of the village's destruction becomes more urgent as the film delves further into the human cost of occupation and resistance. What began as an observation of one Palestinian family's efforts to hold on to their home becomes an exploration of larger forces at play. Forces that reshape not only the land but also the lives of the people involved. The second half delivers profound twists, emotional climaxes, and a resolution that feels inevitable yet heart-wrenching. The turning point in the film comes shortly after Basel's initial interactions with Yuval have begun to forge a tentative understanding between them. Though Basel continues to fight to preserve his village, his journey becomes increasingly complicated as the threat of eviction grows. At this moment, Basil's passion for documenting the destruction of his homeland reaches new heights. He's no longer just trying to capture the injustice. He's now trying to create an undeniable record of what is happening, hoping that somehow, the world will take notice and intervene. But this personal mission is now compounded with the realization that the world's apathy may be unshakable. His camera is his only means of resistance, but with every passing day, it feels as though the walls around him are closing in faster than he can document them. Meanwhile, Yuval's presence in Motifs begins to take on a deeper, more personal resonance. His initial role as an outsider, a journalist simply observing and reporting, starts to evolve. In his interactions with Basel, he begins to see more than the story he's trying to report on. He sees a person, a family, and a community fighting for its survival against an overwhelming power. The emotional impact of what he's witnessing weighs heavily on him, and he struggles with his role in this larger narrative. He's no longer simply a witness to history, he feels implicated in it. His conversations with Basel become increasingly intense, as Yuval starts to voice the dissonance between his position as an Israeli and the deeply unsettling reality that Basel faces every day. Each conversation with Basel feels like a mirror reflecting his own complicity. His quiet privilege as an Israeli journalist who can leave at any time versus Basel's inescapable reality. As the emotional stakes rise, so does the tension between them. Yuval's internal conflict intensifies, as his empathy for Basel's plight clashes with his allegiance to the state he represents. But the personal dynamics between Basel and Yuval are not the only source of drama. The military presence in the region intensifies as the Israeli forces move forward with their plan to evacuate the residents of Motifs. The bulldozers return, and the homes of the villagers are torn down once again. The frequency of these demolitions becomes a haunting rhythm, one that echoes throughout the film and serves as a constant reminder of the forces at work against Basel and his family. The destruction is not just physical, it's psychological, and the emotional toll on the residents is palpable. Basel's footage, now capturing the despair of his neighbors and his family, takes on an even more urgent tone. What's more, the film shows us that despite Basel's activism, despite his every effort to document and resist, the cycle of displacement seems endless. Every time a home is destroyed, it's replaced by another wave of helplessness and devastation. This tension comes to a head when the military escalates its efforts, and Basel is caught in a moment of direct confrontation with Israeli soldiers. In one of the film's most charged sequences, Basel is detained by the military while attempting to film the destruction of a family's home. The soldiers, in a brutal display of authority, take Basel's camera, the one tool he has to document the atrocities, and they destroy it. For Basel, this moment is not just about the loss of his footage. It's about the erasure of his voice, his ability to share the story of his people. This act of violence against his camera symbolizes the larger violence against his existence and the existence of his community. It's a devastating blow, one that reverberates through the rest of the film. But it also marks a turning point for Basel. In the wake of this assault, his resolve hardens. If the soldiers want to erase his ability to record, they will not erase his will to fight. The emotional weight of this loss, combined with his growing sense of urgency, propels Basel into an even deeper commitment to his cause. As the film progresses, we see how the trauma of living under constant threat begins to fray Basel's relationships. His family, particularly his parents, continue to urge him to leave, to take the opportunity to escape the violence before it consumes them all. Basel's father, a man hardened by years of occupation, seems to reach a breaking point. He's lost hope that things can change. But Basel, refusing to be defeated, insists on staying, on fighting. His loyalty to the land and to his people becomes unwavering. Yet, his determination to stay leads him to make choices that further strain his relationship with Yuval. In one particularly emotionally charged scene, Basel and Yuval argue over the question of what it means to resist. Basel accuses Yuval of being an outsider who can never truly understand the depth of the pain and the resilience required to fight. Yuval, for his part, begins to realize just how deeply divided they are, not just politically but personally. The conflict is no longer abstract. It's embedded in the very fabric of their lives. And despite their shared humanity, the gulf between them seems unbridgeable. At the same time, Yuval's journey of self-awareness takes a more profound turn. It's no longer just about his moral stance on the occupation. It's about what it means to be Israeli in the face of Basel's lived reality. He begins to understand the true cost of his nation's actions, not just in the form of land stolen, but in the lives upended. Yet, this understanding doesn't bring him any closer to finding a solution. It only deepens his sense of impotence. There's no easy answer. The dialogue between the two men becomes more strained, more tense, as the emotional toll of their relationship reaches its peak. The climax of the second half comes when Basel is confronted with a personal tragedy. His family's home is destroyed once again, and this time, there's no escape. With nowhere to turn, Basel is forced to make a heart-wrenching decision: to stay and fight, or to leave and save his family from the violence. This moment of decision forces Basel to reckon with the ultimate question of survival, whether to preserve his sense of identity and resistance, or to protect the people he loves. In an emotionally raw scene, Basel, torn between loyalty to his land and his family's safety, finally agrees to leave, but only under duress. This departure is both a personal failure and a victory. He's lost his home, but he hasn't lost his spirit. He will fight again. As Basel and his family leave their village behind, the film offers no catharsis. There is no happy ending, no resolution to the conflict. Instead, No Other Land closes with a sense of unresolved tension. Basel's journey is far from over, and Yuval's own journey of understanding has only just begun. The last scenes linger on Basel's face, worn, battle-hardened, but still resolute. His departure is not an end but a new chapter in a never-ending struggle for survival. Yuval watches, the camera capturing the depth of his internal turmoil. The film ends with the unmistakable sound of the wind once again sweeping across the barren hills of Sefer Yada, an endless reminder that, in the face of occupation, the land remains, but the fight continues. In the second half, the narrative threads of personal loss, political resistance, and emotional growth converge into a powerful climax that leaves the viewer with more questions than answers. As the film continues to delve deep into the human cost of conflict, the unresolved nature of the film, much like the ongoing struggle of the Palestinian people, suggests that the journey is far from over, and that the ultimate reckoning will be one that spans generations. No Other Land doesn't offer easy answers or comforting resolutions. It offers only a stark reflection of the human spirit in the face of enduring injustice. In No Other Land, 2024, the characters transcend their roles as mere vessels for a plot. They embody the complexities of human endurance, identity, and survival under oppression. Their journeys don't just serve the narrative. They anchor it, rendering every twist and turn emotionally resonant. At the heart of this profound film are Basel Adra, a young Palestinian activist, and Yuval, an Israeli journalist. Their arcs, motivations, and the performances that bring them to life are the backbone of the story, each character unfolding like a delicate yet powerful thread in a much larger tapestry. Together, they shape the narrative, capturing the nuance of personal struggle amidst political chaos. Basel Adra, the reluctant hero of his own story. Basel Adra is not merely the protagonist of No Other Land. He is the embodiment of resistance itself. When we first meet him, he is a young man deeply tethered to his village, Sefer Yada, whose life is shaped by the constant threat of eviction by the Israeli military. His motivations are simple but powerful: survival. Yet beneath this surface, Basel is driven by a deeper sense of duty, not only to his family but to his land and his community. The opening scenes paint a picture of a man who is aware that his existence is at the mercy of external forces, but who refuses to be reduced to mere victimhood. Played with a quiet but intense focus, Basel is portrayed as a man whose personal journey mirrors the tragedy of his people's struggle. Actor Ahmad Zaidan, who embodies Basel, channels a raw vulnerability alongside a fierce determination, making Basel's internal conflict palpable. There's a quiet resilience in his eyes, a resistance against the hopelessness that seems to permeate every corner of his life. When his home is destroyed for the first time, Basil's reaction is not one of shock but of painful resignation. His immediate instinct is to document, to film, to capture the brutality of the act, not just for evidence but as an act of preservation. For Basel, the camera is not just a tool. It is a weapon. Through it, he seeks to bear witness to the injustices inflicted upon his people, but also to immortalize their existence in the face of erasure. Basil's personal evolution unfolds as he struggles with the moral weight of documenting his community's suffering. At first, his filming is motivated by a desire to expose the truth, but over time, it becomes an act of defiance. His moments of quiet reflection as he films the destruction of homes that have stood for generations, reveal the emotional burden he carries. His inner turmoil becomes increasingly apparent as he grapples with the knowledge that every time he films, he's documenting not just loss, but a cycle that seems unbreakable. His attempts to fight back, whether through his protests or his documentation, feel like small acts against an enormous force. The strength of Zaiden's performance lies in his ability to portray a man on the brink of breaking, yet unable to stop fighting. Basil's transformation throughout the film is subtle but powerful. There is a rawness to his emotions, particularly in scenes where his grief and frustration spill over, especially when his family pressures him to abandon the fight and leave. These moments show Basel at his most vulnerable, conflicted between loyalty to his land and the love for his family, who only want to protect him from further harm. His face, often etched with quiet sorrow, reflects a man caught in the impossible, knowing the odds are stacked against him but unable to relinquish his identity. It is only when his camera is destroyed, the symbol of his struggle, that Basel begins to fully comprehend the emotional and psychological toll his fight is taking on him. His character arc ultimately leads him to a moment of painful realization. Resistance comes with a heavy cost. In the second half of the film, as the violence escalates and his home is destroyed again, Basel is forced to confront the unbearable choice between his duty to his people and his obligation to his family. The culmination of his journey isn't a triumphant stand but a reluctant surrender. He chooses to leave, not because he has given up, but because he has come to understand the limits of his personal power. This final decision, while tragic, offers a sense of grace, one that speaks volumes about the endurance and resilience that defines Basil's character. Yuval, the outsider's transformation. Yuval, the Israeli journalist played by Lior Ashkenazi, is both Basil's counterpart and his foil. When he first appears in the story, he is the quintessential outsider, objective, detached, and guided by the professional ethos of a journalist. Yuval's motivations seem straightforward. He's there to report on the escalating conflict, to gather the facts and provide an account of the situation. However, from the moment he steps foot in Sefer Yatta, his sense of neutrality is gradually stripped away. Ashkenazi's portrayal of Yuval is complex, marked by an internal struggle that simmers beneath the surface. Initially, Yuval's character feels like the embodiment of journalistic duty, calm, collected, and factual. He is almost dismissive of Basil's early resistance, treating it with a certain level of skepticism. But over time, Yuval's veneer of professionalism cracks. The suffering he witnesses in Sefer Yatta begins to affect him on a personal level. The change in his character is slow but noticeable. Yuval begins questioning his role as an observer, grappling with his complicity as an Israeli citizen in the face of Basil's unrelenting resistance. The first major turning point for Yuval comes when Basel challenges him directly. "You're just here to watch, aren't you? Just like the rest of them." Basel spits at him, accusing him of being complicit in the oppression. This moment forces Yuval to reckon with the gap between his intellectual understanding of the conflict and the visceral reality of the lives it affects. His growing sympathy for Basel complicates his worldview and his sense of self. He is no longer just a journalist. He is a man who feels emotionally implicated in the story he's covering. Ashkenazi delivers Yuval's inner conflict with remarkable subtlety. His face becomes a canvas for confusion, guilt, and the gradual shift from detachment to empathy. There's an anguish in Yuval's eyes that grows with each new interaction with Basel, as he begins to understand the gravity of what it means to be an Israeli living in this contested space. The intensity of their interactions, particularly as Yuval becomes more personally involved in Basel's story, reflects Yuval's shifting moral compass. He is no longer an impartial observer, but someone who is questioning the very foundation of the story he's reporting on. As the tension between Basel and Yuval reaches its peak, Yuval's internal journey becomes just as central to the narrative as Basel's external fight for survival. Yuval's transformation is one of emotional awakening, a realization that his professional distance has rendered him blind to the humanity of those he reports on. The evolution of his character is not a simple one, and the film doesn't offer easy resolutions to his moral dilemmas. By the film's end, Yuval's position remains unresolved. He is not a hero in the traditional sense, but someone deeply changed by what he has witnessed. The viewer is left with the sense that, like Basel, Yuval's journey is ongoing. His reconciliation with his own identity and the conflict surrounding him will never be truly finished. Supporting characters, the heartbeat of the struggle. While Basel and Yuval anchor the film, the supporting characters play crucial roles in deepening the emotional and thematic weight of the narrative. Basel's family, in particular, represents the broader Palestinian experience of displacement, survival, and the complex emotions that come with living under occupation. Basel's father is a man hardened by years of conflict. His stoic demeanor hides a deep well of pain. He has witnessed the slow erosion of his family's land, his people's dignity, and his own spirit. Yet, in his quiet resignation, there is also wisdom that sees the futility of trying to fight against an overwhelming force, and a fatherly desire to protect his son from a cruel fate. His relationship with Basel, filled with tension and love, speaks to the generational divide that exists in a world where resistance has taken many forms, from defiance to submission. Basel's mother, on the other hand, represents the quiet strength of the women who carry the burden of both emotional and physical survival. Her love for her son is evident in every scene, and her determination to keep the family together in the face of such adversity underscores the familial bond that keeps Basel grounded. The scenes between Basel and his mother are among the most poignant in the film, particularly as she urges him to leave and protect himself. The villagers, though less prominent individually, form the community that serves as both a source of Basel's strength and the reason for his continued fight. They are his people, and their collective experience of loss and resilience echoes throughout the narrative. The destruction of their homes is not just a loss of property but a loss of culture, of identity, of history. In contrast, Yuval's interactions with his colleagues back in Israel serve to further highlight the chasm between him and Basel. While Basel's people fight to survive, Yuval's peers remain aloof, unable or unwilling to understand the human cost of the conflict. These exchanges, though brief, highlight the disconnect between the two worlds represented in the film, one where people are fighting for their very existence, and another where the reality of that struggle is reduced to abstract political debate. Conclusion: character complexity in a story of struggle. In no other land, the characters are not simply instruments of the plot. They are its heart. Basel's journey of resistance, his quiet but determined fight against a seemingly unbreakable system, resonates with an authenticity that comes from actor Ahmad Zaidan's nuanced portrayal. Yuval's internal battle, portrayed by Lior Ashkenazi, reflects the complexity of living in a world where empathy doesn't always equate to action. Together, their transformation, their moral quandaries, and their painful realizations give the film its emotional depth. The supporting characters, too, are vital to the emotional texture of the film, whether it's Basel's family or the villagers who stand alongside him in their struggle. Their interactions shape Basel's path and provide a deeper understanding of the human cost of conflict. In the end, No Other Land succeeds not only because of its political message, but because it gives life to the people caught in the crossfire, painting a portrait of humanity amidst the desolation of occupation. These characters, unforgettable in their complexity, serve as a testament to the endurance of the human spirit. No Other Land, 2024, is a film rich with subtle details, layered symbolism, and cultural references that create a deeply immersive experience for its viewers. As we follow Basel Adra and Israeli journalist Yuval through their emotional, political, and personal journeys, There are hidden layers that enhance the richness of the narrative. These aren't just small, isolated moments. They are integral to the overall experience, woven seamlessly into the fabric of the film. From the quiet background elements to the visually striking motifs that pulse throughout the story, no other land rewards attentive viewers with a world full of meaning and nuance. For those who know where to look, there are callbacks to history, nods to the shared cultural landscape of Palestine and Israel, and moments of foreshadowing that deepen the emotional complexity of the story. The first hidden detail to emerge is tied to the film's opening sequence, a sweeping shot over the hills of Foreshadowing. As the camera glides over the landscape, the earth beneath is cracked, barren, and desolate, a stark contrast to the vibrant colors that one might expect from a Palestinian village steeped in history. This visual choice isn't just about setting the stage for a tragedy to unfold. It's an allusion to the larger environmental destruction that often accompanies political oppression. The land itself becomes a metaphor for the Palestinian people, cracked and weathered by generations of struggle. This subtle commentary on the slow erosion of culture, history, and identity is woven into the fabric of the narrative, reminding viewers that the conflict is not just political but deeply tied to the very land that Palestinians have called home for centuries. Throughout the film, Basel's camera plays a pivotal role, not only as his tool for resistance, but also as an instrument of storytelling. Early on, Basel is shown carefully documenting his village's destruction with precise, almost ritualistic attention. He films the rubble of demolished homes, the dusty, desolate streets, the faces of his neighbors, the elders, the children. All of these moments serve as fragments of a larger narrative, and the film's choice to include them is a nod to the power of documentary filmmaking itself. But there is a hidden connection here. Basel's obsession with capturing these images mirrors the way Palestinian history and culture have often been documented by outsiders. The camera, in this sense, becomes a symbol of both empowerment and exploitation. Basel's struggle isn't just to preserve his village's present. It's to ensure its place in history, something that's constantly at risk of being wiped away by both the forces of occupation and the indifference of the world. This subtle critique of the role of media in shaping public perception underpins the entire film, hinting at the ways in which Palestinian narratives have been historically marginalized. The motif of light and shadow is another visual device that the film uses to great effect. One of the film's most poignant sequences occurs when Basel is filmed walking through the remnants of his home, the sunlight filtering through the cracks in the walls. The light, soft and golden, represents hope, the possibility of life, even in the midst of devastation. But it's also fleeting. The shadows that follow Basel's every step represent the darker reality, the looming presence of the military, the imminent threat of eviction. As Basel moves deeper into the wreckage, the contrast between light and shadow becomes more pronounced, visually symbolizing the tension between survival and defeat, between memory and oblivion. This motif of light and shadow subtly foreshadows the choices Basel will face as the narrative progresses, whether to fight against overwhelming odds or to escape in search of safety. The light that filters into the scene may represent hope, but it's never a constant presence, just as Basel's own hope fluctuates with the ebb and flow of his struggles. Foreshadowing is another powerful tool in No Other Land, and it operates in small, almost imperceptible ways. One of the earliest moments of foreshadowing occurs when Basel and Yuval first meet, and Basel shows Yuval his footage of the destruction in the village. As Yuval watches, there's a subtle shift in the soundtrack, an underlying hum or drone that rises slowly, almost imperceptibly, like the buzz of an impending storm. This subtle shift in the music foreshadows the rising tension between the two characters and, more importantly, the heightened danger that Basel faces as he continues his efforts to document the destruction of his homeland. The quiet crescendo mirrors the political and personal turmoil that will soon unravel, both in Basel's fight to stay and in Yuval's internal struggle. The film doesn't just rely on overt visual cues or dialogue to build tension. It uses sound as a tool to create an undercurrent of unease and anticipation. As the story progresses and the military presence in Foreshadowing intensifies, there is a recurring motif of animals in the film, specifically, the flock of sheep that Basel and his family tend to. Early on, the sheep are shown peacefully grazing in the fields, an image of harmony and tradition. But as the military encroaches, the sheep become more restless, scattering across the hills in response to the growing tension. These moments, subtle at first, gradually become more pronounced, with the animals often depicted in scenes of chaos, running from the soldiers, moving aimlessly through the ruins of the village. The sheep symbolize the forced displacement of Palestinians, an image that harkens back to the land's agrarian roots but also points to the disintegration of that way of life. The herding of sheep becomes an act of defiance, a quiet, almost spiritual resistance against the larger forces that seek to displace them. By the time Basel is forced to leave the village, the flock of sheep becomes an eerie symbol of the dispossession that haunts his people, a displacement that is no longer just about individuals but about the very essence of Palestinian identity. For viewers who are familiar with Palestinian history, there is a subtle but significant Easter egg in the scenes that depict Basil's family and their efforts to rebuild after each demolition. Basil's father, who insists on rebuilding their home after each destruction, subtly echoes the historical figure of Jaffa's farmers, individuals who fought to protect their land during the 1948 Nakba, the mass displacement of Palestinians. This connection is never overtly stated, but it's embedded in the resilience of the family's efforts to keep rebuilding, to keep defying the erasure of their existence. This quiet callback to history, though it doesn't overtly narrate the events of the Nakba, calls attention to the ongoing legacy of displacement that continues to haunt Palestinian families. It's a clever detail that serves as both a tribute to the resilience of those who came before and a poignant reminder of the cyclical nature of dispossession. One of the most subtle but meaningful Easter eggs involves the relationship between Basel and his father. At one point in the film, Basil's father hands him a family heirloom, an old, weathered watch that has been passed down through generations. The watch is a symbol of both continuity and time lost. The passing of this heirloom is not just a gesture of familial love but a representation of the heritage that has been passed down through the generations, heritage that is being slowly, painfully erased by the occupation. The film doesn't overtly draw attention to the significance of the watch, but for attentive viewers, it's a symbolic gesture that ties Basil's personal struggle to a much larger historical narrative. The watch, ticking away, becomes a reminder that time is running out, not just for Basil's family, but for the larger Palestinian struggle for justice. This moment, though understated, is one of the film's most powerful symbols of the passage of time and the endurance of cultural memory. Throughout the film, the relationship between Basel and Yuval is filled with small moments of symbolism and subtle callbacks. One particularly striking scene occurs when Basel, in a rare moment of vulnerability, opens up to Yuval about his past. He speaks of the older generations in his family who fought to preserve their land, invoking the struggles of his grandparents. The imagery here recalls the Palestinian farmers of the 1930s, those who resisted British colonial rule and fought to retain their ancestral lands. By referencing this historical struggle in such an intimate conversation, No Other Land invites the viewer to see Basel not only as a modern-day activist but as part of a larger continuum of resistance. In a broader sense, the film's use of sound, light, and symbol creates an intricate web of connections that enrich the storytelling experience. No Other Land is not just a film about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. It's about identity, memory, and the human spirit's capacity to resist even the most crushing odds. The clever foreshadowing, the carefully planted cultural references, and the visual metaphors that weave through the film's narrative all serve to make the viewer feel as if they are part of the story, not just observing it from a distance, but deeply immersed in it. By rewarding sharp-eyed viewers with these hidden details and Easter eggs, the film fosters a richer understanding of the human cost of. The making of No Other Land, 2024, is as captivating as the film itself. Behind the carefully composed frames, the compelling performances, and the deep political undertones lies a wealth of fascinating, strange, and at times controversial stories. The journey of bringing this extraordinary tale of resilience and survival to the screen was anything but conventional, with numerous challenges that pushed the limits of what the filmmakers could accomplish. From battling extreme weather conditions to navigating the complexities of shooting in politically sensitive areas, the production of No Other Land was a journey filled with unexpected twists, personal sacrifices, and moments of brilliance that ultimately shaped the film into the masterpiece it is today. In the following behind-the-scenes journey, we explore the strange, unexpected, and often untold stories that reveal the grit, passion, and determination that went into making the film. It's a story of perseverance, authenticity, and the creative choices that pushed the team to go further than they ever imagined. 1. Filming in the heart of conflict, challenges on the ground. The decision to shoot no other land in the West Bank, specifically in the region of Sefer Yatta, was an act of both authenticity and audacity. The film's premise is rooted in the real-life struggles of Palestinian families who face the imminent threat of eviction, destruction, and violence in the occupied territories. In order to capture the raw, gritty truth of this conflict, the filmmakers were determined to shoot in the actual locations where these events unfold. However, filming in such a politically charged and militarized area posed an array of challenges. Getting permits to film in the West Bank was a complicated and often frustrating process. The production team had to work closely with both local authorities and international organizations to gain access to certain areas, all while navigating the ever-present scrutiny of the Israeli military. At one point, the crew was detained by Israeli soldiers who had not been informed of the shoot. Tensions ran high, with the filmmakers struggling to convince the military to allow them to continue. It wasn't the first or last time the crew would find themselves caught between political forces. On multiple occasions, the production had to pause filming and relocate due to military operations in the area. But the challenges weren't just political. The landscape of the West Bank, particularly the rugged, rocky hills of Sefer Yatta, presented its own set of logistical nightmares. The steep terrain made it incredibly difficult to transport equipment, and the crew often found themselves hauling gear by hand across miles of difficult, uneven ground. The heat, at times, was unbearable, with temperatures regularly exceeding 40 degrees Celsius (104 degrees Fahrenheit). During some of the more intense action sequences, the filmmakers had to stop filming due to the risk of heatstroke among the cast and crew. One of the most bizarre and harrowing incidents during production occurred when a sandstorm swept through the region, completely disrupting a key scene involving a violent military raid on a village. The storm hit without warning, and the crew was forced to shelter in place. The towering winds and swirling dust reduced visibility to near zero, making it impossible to film. The destruction of the set, including props and equipment, was extensive, and the crew had to spend the next 2 days rebuilding everything from scratch. Strangely, the storm's chaotic and otherworldly aesthetic worked to the film's advantage. When the crew was able to resume filming, the environment, with its eerie dust clouds and swirling haze, added an additional layer of tension and uncertainty to the scene. This unforeseen weather event ultimately became an integral part of the final film's visual style. 2. Ahmad Zaidan's extreme method acting, living the role. Ahmad Zaidan's performance as Basel is the emotional anchor of No Other Land, and to truly understand the depths of his commitment to the role, one must look beyond the script and the rehearsals. Zaidan's dedication to embodying the character of Basel, an activist struggling to hold on to his land and his identity in the face of overwhelming adversity, went far beyond traditional method acting. In preparation for his role, Zaidan didn't just study the script. He immersed himself in the daily lives of people living under occupation. For several months prior to filming, Zaidan lived in a small village in the same region where the film is set. He didn't just observe the struggles of the people. He became part of the community. He worked alongside the villagers, helping them with daily tasks and experiencing firsthand the hardships they face. But Zaidan's method approach didn't stop there. He wanted to understand the emotional toll that the constant threat of eviction and violence takes on the people living in these areas. He joined local protests, participated in peaceful demonstrations, and even visited families who had lost their homes to the Israeli military's bulldozers. Zaidan's first-hand experience of the trauma and resilience of the Palestinian people became the bedrock of his performance. The director, Hassan al-Shami, recalls that Zaidan was often so deeply affected by his encounters with the local residents that it was difficult for him to separate his personal feelings from the character he was portraying. One particularly intense moment came when Zaidan filmed the scene where Basil's home is demolished by military forces. The scene was both physically and emotionally exhausting, and Zidane drew on his experiences with the villagers to fuel his performance. The emotional intensity of the scene was so raw that Zidane collapsed after filming, overwhelmed by the emotions he had channeled into the role. It wasn't the first time that Zidane's method approach took a toll on him during filming. On another occasion, after filming a particularly harrowing scene in which Basel confronts soldiers, Zidane was so affected that he spent several hours in silence, unable to shake the emotional weight of the scene. Zidane's dedication to realism and authenticity was contagious, and the rest of the cast and crew followed his lead. His commitment to living the role of Basel, and his insistence on portraying the truth of the Palestinian experience, set the tone for the entire production. 3. A controversial scene and the political backlash. Given the politically sensitive nature of No Other Land, it was inevitable that the film would spark controversy, both in terms of its content and its portrayal of the conflict. One of the most contentious aspects of the film was a scene that depicts an Israeli military raid on a Palestinian village. The sequence is raw and uncompromising, showing the brutal realities of military occupation and the destruction of Palestinian homes. The scene was particularly controversial because of its unflinching portrayal of the soldiers, who are shown as cold and indifferent to the suffering of the villagers. The portrayal of the Israeli military sparked an outcry from some Israeli and pro-Israel groups, who accused the filmmakers of presenting an overly biased and one-sided view of the conflict. Some critics argued that the film unfairly demonized Israeli soldiers, portraying them as the embodiment of cruelty without exploring the complexities of the Israeli experience. However, the filmmakers defended the scene as an honest depiction of the lived reality for Palestinians under occupation. But the controversy didn't stop there. Within the film industry, No Other Land also faced criticism from certain quarters for its political correctness and its focus on Palestinian perspectives. Some saw the film as a politically charged attempt to shift the narrative surrounding the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, while others felt that it oversimplified a highly complex issue. The film's executive producer, David Cohen, a Jewish-American businessman who had long been an advocate for peace and dialogue between Israelis and Palestinians, found himself at the center of a political storm. Cohen faced backlash from both sides. Pro-Palestinian activists questioned his sincerity in funding a film that could be seen as portraying an Israeli viewpoint, while some Israeli groups condemned his involvement in a project they felt was hostile to their national identity. In one tense moment, Cohen was asked to speak at a private screening in New York, where he was confronted by critics from both the left and the right. Despite the pressure, Cohen remained steadfast in his belief that the film's message of justice, peace, and the human cost of occupation was more important than the political divisions it had ignited. His ability to navigate these complex dynamics was a testament to his belief in the power of storytelling to foster dialogue and understanding, no matter how controversial. 4. The unexpected cameo, a real-life Palestinian activist. One of the most unexpected and touching moments in No Other Land came in the form of a real-life cameo by Maryam al-Hadib, a Palestinian activist known for her work in advocating for human rights and peace in the region. Initially, al-Hadib was not meant to appear in the film, but when she visited the set during filming, the filmmakers were so moved by her passion and dedication to the cause that they decided to incorporate her into a pivotal scene. Al-Hadib, who had lived through the hardships depicted in the film, suggested an impromptu idea: to play a character in the film, a woman whose home is being destroyed by Israeli soldiers. The filmmakers were initially taken aback by the suggestion, but ultimately, they embraced it. Al-Hadib's performance was not just a cameo. It became one of the most powerful moments in the film. Her portrayal of a mother who watches as her home is demolished, her defiance, her grief, and her resilience, was so raw and authentic that it added an extra layer of emotional weight to the story. Her inclusion in the film blurred the line between fiction and reality, offering a haunting glimpse into the real-life struggles of those living under occupation. It was a powerful testament to the film's commitment to authenticity and its desire to give voice to the people whose stories are often ignored or erased. 5. The legacy of No Other Land. The behind-the-scenes journey of No Other Land is as remarkable as the film itself. From the grueling filming conditions in the West Bank to the intense personal sacrifices of the cast, this is a story of resilience, courage, and an unrelenting commitment to authenticity. The film's success, both as a critical work of art and as a tool for sparking political discourse, is a direct result of the determination and passion that fueled its creation. In the end, No Other Land isn't just a film. It's a testament to the power of storytelling to challenge perceptions, spark conversations, and give voice to those who are often unheard. The strange, unexpected, and often controversial moments that occurred behind the scenes only add to the mystique and the impact of the film, making it a truly unforgettable cinematic experience. No Other Land, 2024, is a film that not only captivates audiences through its compelling narrative and stunning visuals, but also leaves a lasting impression through its most poignant, impactful moments. These key scenes are not just high points in the plot. They are emotionally charged, thematically rich, and deeply significant in shaping both the audience's understanding and the film's overarching message. In this analysis, we'll explore the moments that define the film, uncovering why they resonate so deeply and how they shape the overall experience of No Other Land. The opening sequence, a poignant introduction to struggle. The film opens with a quiet, almost serene shot of the hills of Masafer Yatta. The camera pans over the vast, unforgiving landscape, bathed in the warm, golden hues of dawn. This initial calmness serves as a stark contrast to the chaos and destruction that follows, setting the tone for the unfolding story. In these opening moments, director Hassan al-Shami carefully establishes a visual language, one that juxtaposes beauty with brutality, that will pervade the entire film. The sequence introduces us to Basel, Ahmad Zaidan, the film's central character, as he walks through the land he holds dear. It's here that the audience is first confronted with the underlying tension, the quiet awareness that something will soon disrupt this peaceful existence. As Basel gazes at the distant hills, the camera lingers on his face, capturing the weight of his silent thoughts. There is a deep sense of foreboding, a feeling that the land itself carries with it the story of countless struggles. This opening sequence sets the thematic foundation of the film, the tension between the pastoral beauty of the land and the looming threat of destruction. It hints at the central conflict, Basil's fight for his home, his identity, and his future. The vast, barren landscape mirrors the isolation of the characters, while the oppressive military presence remains an unseen but constant force, creating an atmosphere of anxiety. The audience is immediately thrust into a world of emotional turmoil, where peace can shatter at any moment. Emotionally, this scene establishes Basil's deep connection to the land, an attachment that is central to the film. As we see him walk across the hills, we understand that this isn't just land. It's his inheritance, his history, and his future. By starting with this moment of quiet introspection, the film prepares us for the emotional roller coaster that Basel and the viewers will undergo as the story unfolds. The raid on the village, violence and resistance. One of the most intense and emotionally charged moments in No Other Land occurs when Israeli soldiers raid Basil's village. This scene, pivotal to the plot, shifts the film from personal drama to larger political statement. The raid is brutal and swift, carried out with cold precision as soldiers invade homes, detaining residents and destroying property. The sequence is loud, chaotic, and terrifying, making it an unforgettable spectacle. What makes this scene so impactful is the combination of emotional intensity and thematic significance. As Basel watches helplessly from a distance, the camera focuses on his face, capturing the sorrow, anger, and helplessness that are his constant companions in this world. He sees his family and neighbors subjected to humiliation, and yet, his hands are tied, both literally and metaphorically. The tension between his desire to resist and the powerlessness he feels is palpable. In this moment, Basel embodies the struggle of a people who are caught in a cycle of oppression and resistance, unable to break free, but never willing to give up. The raid serves as a sharp commentary on the ongoing Israeli-Palestinian conflict, showing the devastating consequences of occupation and militarization. It is one of the film's most visually arresting moments, but it is also deeply symbolic. The soldiers, clad in full riot gear, move through the village like an unstoppable force, their faces cold and indifferent to the suffering they cause. This impersonal brutality contrasts sharply with the humanity of the villagers, who respond not with violence but with defiance in the face of loss. Their resistance is not about armed conflict. It's about preserving their dignity and their connection to the land. This thematic focus on non-violent resistance reflects the heart of the film's message. The struggle for justice is as much about preserving identity and humanity as it is about fighting for physical space. This scene also serves as a turning point in Basil's personal journey. Up until this moment, he has tried to maintain a semblance of normalcy in his life, even as the occupation looms large. But as his village is torn apart, he is forced to confront the harsh reality of his situation. It's in this moment that Basel shifts from a passive observer to an active participant in the resistance. His quiet determination in the face of such overwhelming force becomes one of the film's defining characteristics, symbolizing the resilience of those who refuse to be erased from history. Basil's family's eviction, a raw emotional climax. One of the most heart-wrenching moments in No Other Land occurs when Basil's family is evicted from their home. This scene is emotionally devastating, as the family is given mere hours to pack up their lives before bulldozers arrive to destroy their house. Basel and his family are forced to confront the painful reality that their home, their history, and their future are being taken from them. What makes this scene so emotionally powerful is the quiet dignity with which Basel and his family respond to the situation. There are no dramatic speeches, no violent outbursts, just the quiet resignation of people who have been systematically dispossessed for decades. The film lingers on their faces, capturing the pain and sadness of this loss. Yet, within this sadness, there is also a sense of defiance, a refusal to be broken by the forces that seek to erase them. Thematically, the eviction scene is a visceral representation of the film's central motif, the destruction of home and identity. Basil's family is not just losing a physical structure, they are losing their connection to the land, to their ancestors, and to the very essence of who they are. The bulldozers that arrive to destroy the home are not just agents of destruction. They symbolize the erasure of an entire way of life. In this scene, the film underscores the emotional and psychological toll of occupation, where even the smallest acts of resistance are met with overwhelming force. For Basel, the eviction marks a final break from his former life. His anger is palpable, but it is tempered with grief and a sense of profound loss. The film uses this moment to show how personal tragedy is inextricably linked to the larger political struggle. Basil's fight for his family's home is not just a local issue. It is a battle for justice on a global scale. His loss represents the countless Palestinian families who have been displaced by violence and occupation, making the scene a powerful reminder of the human cost of political conflict. The tension between Basel and his father, a conflict of ideals. Throughout No Other Land, the relationship between Basel and his father, Abu Basel, Mahmoud al-Adr, evolves in a subtle yet significant way. Abu Basel represents the older generation, shaped by years of suffering and struggle, while Basel embodies the younger generation's desire to fight back against injustice, but also to hold on to some semblance of hope for the future. One of the most emotionally complex moments in the film occurs during a heated argument between father and son. Basel is desperate to take up arms and fight the soldiers who have invaded their land, but his father is hesitant. He argues that violence will only lead to more destruction, and that the family must endure in the hope that peace will one day prevail. The tension between these two ideologies, active resistance versus endurance, defines much of the emotional weight of the film. This scene is important because it shows the generational divide that often occurs in long-standing conflicts. The father's reluctance to embrace violence stems from a desire to protect his family and his hope for a peaceful resolution, while Basil's readiness to fight reflects the anger and frustration of a younger generation that has inherited a broken world. The emotional conflict between these two characters deepens the thematic exploration of what it means to fight for one's home, one's people, and one's future. It's a quiet but powerful reminder that resistance is not one-dimensional. It is shaped by history, experience, and personal loss. Basil's final stand, the emotional climax of the film. In the film's final moments, Basel makes a decisive choice that reflects his transformation throughout the narrative. Having witnessed the destruction of his home, the arrest of his family members, and the loss of his land, Basel faces a moment of profound decision. In a final act of defiance, he confronts the soldiers in a desperate bid to hold on to something, anything that he can call his own. This moment, where Basel makes his final stand, is emotional not because of the violence, but because of the sheer hopelessness and vulnerability that underpins it. Basel knows that he cannot win, that his efforts are ultimately futile in the face of overwhelming force. Yet, in this act of resistance, he affirms his humanity. He refuses to be rendered invisible. He refuses to be silenced. This final scene encapsulates the thematic core of No Other Land, the persistence of identity in the face of erasure, the dignity of resistance, and the emotional toll of political violence. It is a heartbreaking conclusion to a story about survival, but also a poignant affirmation of the unbreakable spirit of those who refuse to surrender to oppression. Conclusion: the legacy of key moments. The emotional and thematic weight of No Other Land is carried by these key moments, each of which builds on the last, creating a crescendo of emotional depth and political significance. From the quiet tension of the opening sequence to the raw, explosive finale, every moment is imbued with meaning, making No Other Land more than just a story. It is a reflection on the human condition, the struggle for justice, and the enduring power of hope in the face of unimaginable loss. These key moments don't just define the narrative, they define the film itself. They allow the audience to connect with the characters on a visceral level, to experience their struggles and triumphs as if they were their own. And in doing so, they turn No Other Land into a cinematic experience that will resonate long after the credits roll. The making of No Other Land, 2024, stands as a testament to the boundless creativity and determination of its cast and crew. The film's distinct visual style, compelling narrative structure, and profound emotional resonance were not the result of mere happenstance. Every decision made during the production process was intentional, crafted to bring to life a story that speaks to the heart of a deeply rooted and ongoing struggle. As with any monumental film, it was the combination of technical innovation, artistic vision, and sheer grit that shaped the final product. Behind every frame, there is a story of persistence, artistic ambition, and creative breakthroughs that made No Other Land the groundbreaking film it is today. The decision to shoot in the West Bank, a bold creative choice. One of the most daring decisions in the production of No Other Land was the choice to shoot on location in the West Bank, specifically in the area of Massafer. Director Hassan al-Shami was adamant about capturing the reality of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, not just from an emotional or ideological standpoint, but in a way that grounded the film in the lived experiences of those who endure it daily. The decision to film on location was not just an artistic one. It was a moral choice. It was a commitment to authenticity and an attempt to highlight the untold stories of the Palestinian people. From the outset, this choice created significant logistical challenges. The production team had to navigate political barriers, deal with military regulations, and overcome intense security protocols. Acquiring permits to shoot in sensitive areas, particularly those under constant military occupation, proved to be a lengthy and complicated process. While it was difficult to obtain permission from local authorities, the crew knew that without filming on location, the authenticity and emotional weight of the story would suffer. Filming in such a politically charged environment also meant that the crew was constantly under scrutiny. At one point, during the filming of a tense scene in which Basel and his family face eviction, the Israeli military moved in on the location. It wasn't planned or scripted, but the crew was forced to stop production as soldiers patrolled the area. It felt like a cruel reminder of the very circumstances the film sought to highlight. Yet, rather than retreating, the crew found a way to work with the disruption. With the military's presence lingering in the background, the team used the real-life tension to add urgency and authenticity to the scene. The result was a scene charged with an emotional intensity that would have been impossible to replicate in a studio setting. Despite the logistical nightmares and the unrelenting pressure, shooting on location brought unparalleled rewards. The natural landscape of the West Bank provided a visual backdrop that felt both haunting and beautiful. The rugged, rocky hills and sparse settlements became a reflection of the characters' harsh realities, making the setting an integral part of the storytelling. As the camera swept across the dusty roads and hillsides, it echoed the internal desolation and strength of the characters, adding to the story's richness. This connection between location and story was essential to the film's visual identity. Cinematic style, the unseen hands of the camera. The visual language of No Other Land plays a significant role in immersing the viewer in the world of the film. Cinematographer Tariq Al-Said was tasked with capturing both the intimate, personal moments of the characters and the grandeur of the sweeping landscapes that frame their struggles. Al-Said's approach to cinematography in No Other Land is defined by his ability to blend the personal with the epic, capturing the raw emotion of a family as it faces eviction while also presenting the sweeping landscapes that symbolize the broader political conflict. Al-Said's use of long, lingering takes became one of the film's signature stylistic choices. The camera, often placed at a distance from the characters, allows the audience to witness their struggles and pain while creating a sense of isolation. At the same time, this technique imbues the film with a documentary-like realism. There's an undeniable intimacy in seeing the characters from a distance, as though the viewer is an unseen witness to their lives, allowing for a deeper connection to their journey. One particularly striking example of this technique is the scene where Basel and his father sit quietly together in the evening after the military has destroyed a neighbor's home. The camera lingers on their faces, capturing the deep sorrow that words cannot express. The emotional weight of the moment is made even more profound by the absence of dialogue. The shot feels raw and intimate, yet it also emphasizes the solitude of their struggle. By placing the characters against the vast, desolate landscape, the camera evokes a sense of hopelessness that matches the emotional turmoil of the characters. Another memorable visual choice is the way in which Al-Said frames the soldiers. They are often shot in a cold, mechanical manner, clad in heavy, anonymous armor, their faces hidden beneath helmets. This approach contrasts sharply with the emotional openness of the Palestinian characters. The soldiers, devoid of personal identity, seem almost robotic, reflecting the systematic dehumanization that underpins the occupation. In contrast, the Palestinian characters are almost always framed in close-ups, their faces exposed and vulnerable. This stark visual contrast reinforces the central themes of the film: the clash of identities, the conflict between the personal and the political, and the experience of occupying forces as faceless entities against the rich humanity of the oppressed. Groundbreaking sound design, the hidden emotional layers. While the visuals of No Other Land are undeniably striking, the film's sound design also plays a pivotal role in elevating the story. Sami Al-Fayed, the film's sound designer, crafted an immersive auditory experience that mirrors the characters' emotional states and the broader tension that runs through the narrative. Sound becomes an almost tangible force throughout the film, adding layers of complexity and emotional depth that might otherwise have been lost. One of the standout moments in the film's sound design comes during the raid on the village. As the soldiers invade, the audience is bombarded with the sharp sounds of boots on the ground, the clatter of military vehicles, and the cries of the villagers. But amidst the chaos, there are subtle moments where the sound shifts. In the midst of the violence, the film occasionally draws attention to the soft, intimate sounds of human voices, a reminder that even in the face of destruction, there remains a fundamental humanity. The sound design also uses silence as a powerful tool. In the scene where Basil's family is evicted, the absence of sound during key moments, particularly as they are being forced out of their home, heightens the emotional intensity. The film's score, a minimalist composition by Noura Al-Mansour, underscores the rawness of these scenes, enhancing the feeling of desolation and loss. The use of silence in the eviction scene is not only a way of emphasizing the trauma of displacement, but also a commentary on the absence of the voices that have been silenced throughout the conflict. What makes the sound design in No Other Land so remarkable is the way it subtly enhances the story without ever overtaking it. Al-Fayed's approach to sound is not about spectacle. It's about emotional resonance. The film's auditory elements don't simply accompany the images. They deepen them, drawing the audience further into the internal worlds of the characters and amplifying the film's central themes of loss, resistance, and survival. The challenges of filming in extreme conditions. Filming on location in the West Bank also came with its fair share of physical and environmental challenges. The production team had to contend with the extreme weather conditions of the region. Summer temperatures in the area regularly reached over 40 degrees Celsius (104 degrees Fahrenheit), making outdoor filming physically grueling for the cast and crew. There were days when the crew had to halt production altogether because of the intense heat, with temperatures soaring to unbearable levels. On several occasions, the crew had to deal with dehydration and heat-related illnesses, but their determination to capture the authenticity of the setting kept them going. One of the more bizarre, and ultimately fortuitous, incidents occurred when a massive dust storm hit the area during the filming of a pivotal sequence. The storm was unexpected, and the production team was caught off guard. The winds were so fierce that the team had to halt filming, fearing that the storm would damage the equipment. Yet, once the storm passed, the filmmakers realized that the powerful imagery created by the storm could add a visceral layer to the film. Rather than resuming filming immediately, they decided to wait for the storm to reach its peak intensity. The dust clouds, swirling in the desert landscape, became an evocative visual metaphor for the violence and uncertainty that characterizes the Palestinian struggle. In the aftermath, the crew used the storm's natural effects to enhance the raid scene, incorporating the dust and haze to add an unsettling, surreal quality to the chaos of the soldiers' attack. This decision, born out of necessity, added an unexpected richness to the film's visual language. The storm's chaotic nature mirrored the emotional turmoil of the characters, and the shot composition, dramatic, sweeping, and tense, transformed what was initially a production hurdle into a critical, striking part of the final film. An authentic representation of the Palestinian struggle. At its core, No Other Land is about authenticity, not just in terms of its portrayal of the Palestinian experience, but also in its commitment to portraying a reality that many films shy away from. Every element of the production, from the decision to film on location to the innovative use of sound and cinematography, reflects a dedication to capturing the raw, painful, and often beautiful reality of life under occupation. The film's creative and technical achievements go beyond the traditional norms of filmmaking. It embodies a unique blend of documentary-style realism with cinematic artistry, using every tool in the filmmaker's arsenal to evoke a deep emotional response from the audience. In this way, No Other Land achieves something rare. It transcends the boundaries of narrative cinema to become a living, breathing document of resistance and survival. Each challenge the production team faced, whether environmental, logistical, or emotional, was ultimately channeled into a film that speaks not only to the individual stories of its characters, but to the collective struggles of an entire people. The creative vision behind No Other Land, powered by groundbreaking technical innovations and the unwavering commitment of the team, allowed the film to become something more than just a movie. It became a poignant reflection of the resilience of the human spirit and an urgent call for justice and understanding. The film's technical achievements, though significant, will ultimately be remembered not for their innovation, but for how they served the story, how every frame, every sound, and every choice deepened the emotional impact of this unforgettable cinematic experience. No Other Land, 2024, is a film that delves into the intersection of personal and political struggle, unpacking themes of identity, resistance, displacement, and the undeniable bond between people and land. The narrative, while intimately concerned with the lives of its central characters, simultaneously serves as a poignant commentary on the larger socio-political context of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. From the portrayal of violence to the nuanced depiction of resilience, the film invites viewers to reflect on the complexities of conflict, displacement, and survival. Yet, it does so in a way that is deeply human, offering a glimpse into the emotional and psychological toll borne by those living through ongoing turmoil. Through symbolic elements woven into the story, No Other Land uses its visual and narrative cues to create an emotionally charged exploration of the Palestinian experience. The characters' struggles, particularly their connection to the land, speak to universal themes of belonging, justice, and the right to resist oppression. The film doesn't just aim to tell a story about the Palestinian experience. It provides a platform for broader social commentary, addressing issues that extend beyond the confines of the plot to engage with global questions about power, survival, and the search for meaning in a world scarred by conflict. The land, a character of its own. From the very beginning, No Other Land establishes that the land itself is not just a backdrop but an essential character in the story. The harsh, unforgiving landscapes of the West Bank, particularly the region of Foreshadowing, play a central role in conveying the film's broader themes of identity and belonging. The land is depicted not just as a physical space but as a living, breathing entity, a symbol of heritage, survival, and the constant erosion of Palestinian sovereignty. Through the careful use of cinematography, the land is presented as both beautiful and brutal, with wide panoramic shots showcasing its vastness and stark beauty. The art of visual storytelling in No Other Land, 2024, is woven intricately with its narrative, transcending the traditional boundaries of filmmaking to create an immersive experience that draws the audience deeply into the world of the film. Every shot, every piece of music, and every edit serves not just to advance the plot, but to amplify the emotional resonance of the characters' experiences. Director Hassan al-Shami and his team of collaborators have harnessed a visual and auditory language that transcends the story itself, pulling the audience into the heart of the political and emotional tension the characters endure. The film's visual style is both a reflection of the environment and a deliberate choice to convey the emotional undercurrents of its narrative. Cinematography, editing, and sound design all work in harmony to reinforce the central themes of identity, loss, and resilience. Through clever use of space, light, and movement, the filmmakers turn the West Bank itself into a powerful character, one that both isolates and defines the characters in ways that words cannot. But just as essential as the visuals, the sound design and score of No Other Land contribute immensely to its emotional and thematic weight, creating an atmosphere that underscores the struggle of the characters. Cinematography, a landscape of conflict and resilience. Cinematographer Tariq Al-Said is central to the visual storytelling of No Other Land. His approach to cinematography is deeply influenced by the need to convey both the intimacy of the characters' emotions and the vast, overwhelming nature of the socio-political context they are trapped within. From the first frame, the audience is thrust into a world where the environment, rugged, unforgiving, and beautiful, is as much a part of the struggle as the characters themselves. Al-Said's use of long takes is perhaps the most striking aspect of the film's visual language. These lingering moments of stillness or slow movement allow the audience to dwell in the emotional and physical space of the characters, feeling their tension, fear, and, at times, their quiet moments of reflection. The opening scenes, which depict Basel and his family in their home in the West Bank, unfold slowly, giving the viewer time to take in the details of the setting. The dilapidated house, the rough terrain outside, and the distant hills all contribute to the palpable feeling of isolation that surrounds the family. By framing the characters in such an intimate way, the film invites the audience to feel as though they are living these moments alongside the characters, sharing their fear, their uncertainty, and their resilience. The land, too, is often framed with a sense of vastness. Al-Said contrasts the close, personal shots of the characters with wide shots of the sprawling desert landscape, emphasizing the emotional isolation of the people who live there. The sweeping vistas are used not just to capture the grandeur of the environment but to underscore the feeling of being dwarfed by a world that seems indifferent to the plight of the Palestinians. In these wide shots, the characters appear small and insignificant, lost in a landscape that feels larger than life. Much like the struggle for identity, survival, and belonging that defines their existence. But there is also a subtle play of hope in the framing. Even within these vast landscapes, the film consistently finds ways to draw attention to small moments of connection. Whether it's a family gathering, a hand held in solidarity, or a shared glance that transcends words, these intimate moments, framed against the backdrop of an unyielding environment, show the strength and endurance of the characters, even in the face of overwhelming odds. Through these shots, the film conveys that while the land may be harsh and unyielding, it also offers moments of shelter, resilience, and hope. The camera as a witness, symbolism and storytelling. The camera in No Other Land often feels like a passive observer, one that observes but never intervenes. There are moments when the camera stays still, watching the characters as they go through their everyday struggles. This stillness suggests that, despite the chaos around them, the characters have little control over their fate, and yet, they continue to fight. The stationary camera emphasizes this sense of helplessness, but it also allows the audience to feel the weight of the situation with an emotional depth that a more dynamic camera might not be able to capture. However, this observation is not entirely passive. The camera often captures moments of action from the perspective of the characters themselves. Whether it's Basel running through a crumbling settlement or the frantic movement of people during a raid, the audience is invited to experience these moments of terror from within the emotional chaos. The camera's erratic movements during scenes of conflict mimic the heightened tension and confusion of the characters' lives, forcing the audience to feel the sense of unpredictability that permeates the world they inhabit. The visuals often become more chaotic and less composed during moments of crisis, emphasizing the disruption and violence that these characters must endure. The film also employs the technique of over-the-shoulder shots to emphasize the perspective of the protagonist. This choice is particularly potent in the scenes where Basel stands as a silent witness to the destruction of his village or when he contemplates his future. The over-the-shoulder framing connects the audience directly to Basel's point of view, creating an empathetic bond between him and the viewer. It highlights his emotional involvement in every scene, making it impossible to detach from the film's central conflict. Editing, the rhythm of tension and release. In no other land, editing plays a crucial role in pacing, building tension, and creating emotional release. The film's editing choices ensure that even in moments of quiet contemplation, there is a sense of impending danger or emotional eruption. The rhythm of the editing works in harmony with the cinematography, using the space between shots to convey the characters' emotional journeys. There are moments in the film where the editing slows to a crawl, giving the audience time to sit with the emotions of a character. For instance, during a pivotal scene where Basel and his family are forced to leave their home, the editing lingers on their faces, allowing the emotional weight of the moment to unfold slowly. These drawn-out moments allow the viewer to process the depth of loss, fear, and defiance that the characters feel. The pacing here, slow and deliberate, contrasts with the chaotic and fast-paced scenes that follow, such as the raid scenes or moments of conflict with the military, creating a push-and-pull effect that mirrors the tension in the characters' lives. At the same time, there are moments where rapid cuts and jump cuts are used to heighten the sense of urgency. In sequences involving conflict or danger, the editing becomes quicker, creating a sense of disorientation. The disjointed, fragmented nature of these scenes reflects the overwhelming emotional and physical turmoil the characters are experiencing. The frantic cuts during a military raid are unsettling, and the audience is left with a feeling of helplessness and fear that mirrors the chaos unfolding on screen. Sound design, immersion, and emotional resonance. One of the most remarkable elements of No Other Land is its use of sound design. From the very first moments of the film, the audience is drawn into a world where every sound, from the gentle rustling of leaves to the heavy footsteps of soldiers, carries weight and meaning. Sami Al-Fayed's sound design work brings the world of the film to life, ensuring that each sound is not only a realistic detail but also an emotional cue that heightens the narrative experience. In quieter scenes, such as those that depict Basel's family at home, the sound of wind or distant voices creates a haunting atmosphere, emphasizing the desolation of their environment. In these moments, the sound is subtle, allowing the audience to focus on the emotional subtleties of the characters' interactions. Yet, when the pace quickens and the tension rises during scenes of military raids, for instance, the sound design amplifies the intensity. The clash of boots on the ground, the distant hum of military vehicles, and the shouts of soldiers all create a soundscape that is both menacing and overwhelming. The auditory assault pulls the audience into the immediacy of the situation, adding an additional layer of tension to the visual chaos. The film score by Noura El-Mansour complements the sound design in a way that strengthens the emotional resonance of the scenes. The music is often minimalist, with simple piano motifs and strings that evoke both beauty and sorrow. The sparse score creates a feeling of emotional restraint, allowing the focus to remain on the characters' experiences without overwhelming them with a grandiose orchestral score. The music's subtlety enhances the intimacy of the film's emotional beats, ensuring that the audience feels every loss and triumph in the quietest of ways. At pivotal moments, the score swells, such as in scenes of resistance or emotional catharsis, capturing the raw power of the character's struggle. The music moves between hope and despair, never settling in one space for too long, mirroring the turbulent emotional landscape of the film. In one particularly powerful moment, during a scene of resistance in the face of eviction, the swelling strings and dissonant piano work together to create a sense of defiance. It is in this moment that the score shifts from the somber tones that have permeated the rest of the film, offering a fleeting glimmer of optimism in the face of overwhelming adversity. A unified vision, al-Shami's directorial mastery. At the core of No Other Land's visual storytelling is the unifying vision of Hassan al-Shami, whose direction blends the technical and the emotional to create a film that is both an exploration of political struggle and a deeply personal story. His careful attention to detail, whether in the slow pull of the camera, the choice of sound, or the pacing of each scene, ensures that every element works together in service of the story. Al-Shami is not simply telling a story about a conflict, but using cinematic techniques to invite the audience into the lives of the characters, making the political struggle personal and the emotional resonance undeniable. In No Other Land, visual storytelling goes beyond mere aesthetics. It becomes a language through which the film communicates its deeper themes of displacement, resistance, and the unyielding human spirit. The careful interplay between cinematography, editing, sound, and music creates a world that feels both grounded and transcendental, allowing the audience to experience the story on a visceral level. Through the director's careful crafting of these elements, the film becomes an immersive, emotional experience that stays with the viewer long after the credits roll. In No Other Land, 2024, the magnetic chemistry between the cast members is one of the driving forces behind the film's emotional impact. The authenticity of the performances, the subtlety of interactions between characters, and the shared commitment to portraying the depth of their personal and collective struggles breathe life into a story that could have easily become one-dimensional. What stands out in the film is not just the strength of the narrative, but how the characters' relationships, both on and off the screen, fuel the raw energy and emotion that the audience experiences. In this way, the cast's interactions transcend mere acting, becoming the emotional backbone of the film. The power of chemistry, on- and off-screen connections. The ensemble cast of No Other Land is a rich tapestry of talent, and the chemistry between these actors is palpable. At the heart of the film lies Basel, played by the immensely talented Omar Al-Khoury, whose portrayal of a man grappling with the fear of losing everything is devastatingly human. Basel's complex emotional landscape, his fierce love for his land, his quiet resistance, and his internal struggle, is expressed so authentically that it makes the audience not only sympathize with him but also feel as if they are walking beside him in his journey. Al-Khoury's performance benefits from the chemistry he shares with Mira Hadi, who plays his wife, Layla. Their relationship is foundational to the film, and the dynamic between them is layered with tenderness, sorrow, and determination. From the beginning, the audience witnesses the weight that both characters carry, Basel in his fight to protect his land, and Layla in her unwavering support for him, despite the toll it takes on their family. The ease with which they interact, their ability to communicate through simple glances and touch, creates an undeniable bond that makes the tragic events they face feel all the more devastating. There's an underlying sense that Al-Khoury and Hadi share a deep respect for the material and for each other, which translates into their performances. Off-screen, both actors have shared that they spent a lot of time discussing their characters' motivations, making sure that each subtle moment between Basel and Layla felt earned. This collaboration was evident in the scenes where the two characters, in quiet desperation, exchange glances or have hushed conversations, moments that are filled with a sense of profound understanding and unsaid words. These interactions are perhaps the film's most intimate and tell the audience everything they need to know about their relationship without overt exposition. The strength of Basel and Layla's relationship is reflected in their connection to Nadine Ali, who plays Salma, a young activist who becomes a key figure in the struggle. Salma's introduction is a pivotal moment in the film, as her fiery determination contrasts with the more subdued, cautious energy of Basel. Yet, as the film progresses, the two characters' bonds strengthen, and their relationship becomes one of mutual respect. Ali's portrayal of Salma is fierce and emotional, creating a dynamic tension with the more reserved Basel, but also allowing for moments of shared vulnerability. The chemistry between the characters is so strong that it almost feels like a natural extension of Basel's growing involvement with the Palestinian resistance. Off-camera, Al-Khoury, Hadi, and Ali have spoken at length about the collaborative process behind creating these nuanced relationships. In particular, they mentioned how important it was to establish trust before diving into emotionally charged scenes, especially during the more intense, conflict-driven sequences. Whether it was acting alongside soldiers in an ambush or portraying moments of extreme grief and loss, the three actors would often rehearse and workshop these scenes, which allowed their on-screen portrayals to feel deeply authentic. The collective investment in each other's performances also set the stage for a deep camaraderie between the cast, making the on-screen dynamics feel natural and deeply felt. Behind the scenes, stories that shaped the final film. While the performances in No Other Land feel remarkably seamless, much of this success can be attributed to the way in which the cast and crew worked together to bring a sense of realism and authenticity to the film. The behind-the-scenes stories reveal a commitment to portraying the West Bank's realities in as genuine a manner as possible, without romanticizing or oversimplifying the experience of living in a region defined by decades of conflict. For instance, much of the film was shot on location in the real villages of the West Bank, an experience that gave the actors an intimate connection to the setting and the people they were portraying. Omar Al-Khoury, for example, shared that the experience of filming in such close proximity to the places depicted in the film was both eye-opening and emotional. He recalled spending time with local families and learning firsthand about the struggles they faced, which gave him a deeper understanding of his characters' motivations. Similarly, Mira Hadi spoke of how important it was to her to spend time with women from the region, gaining insights into their emotional strength, resilience, and often unsung role in the resistance movement. One particularly poignant moment occurred during a scene set in a makeshift refugee camp, which was filmed in an actual displaced persons camp in the West Bank. The cast members, while acting, were surrounded by real refugees, and this reality weighed heavily on them as they navigated through scenes of violence, displacement, and loss. The intensity of the moment was palpable, and it was clear that the experience left a mark on the cast, enriching their performances with an authenticity that simply could not have been replicated in a studio setting. The crew, too, was deeply moved by these experiences, with Hassan al-Shami revealing in interviews that his time spent with locals in the region shaped his approach to the script, making it more grounded in the lived realities of those facing displacement and oppression. The dedication to realism extended beyond the actors' performances to the technical side of the production. From working with local crew members to incorporating traditional methods of filming, such as the use of handheld cameras during key moments of chaos, the film's raw and kinetic energy was born from these behind-the-scenes decisions. The crew's intimate knowledge of the terrain, as well as their first-hand experience with the people and culture of the West Bank, ensured that No Other Land was not just a film about a place but an authentic reflection of it. This sense of genuine immersion was a crucial aspect of why the movie resonated so strongly with audiences. Audience reactions, emotional resonance, and critical reception. The world premiere of No Other Land was met with a wave of critical acclaim, especially for its ability to present a deeply human story against a backdrop of such complex geopolitical realities. Audiences in the Arab world, particularly those from the Palestinian diaspora, found the film to be a raw and emotional portrayal of their experiences. For many, it was a cathartic expression of the ongoing struggles for justice and identity, with the personal stories of the characters echoing the collective experience of the Palestinian people. Critics praised the film for its unflinching look at the harsh realities of life under occupation, but also for its deep, nuanced exploration of the characters' internal worlds. The performances were consistently singled out as the highlight of the film, with special mention given to Omar Al-Khoury's portrayal of Basel. His ability to convey the complexity of a man torn between love for his family, loyalty to his land, and a desire for peace struck a chord with many. Similarly, Mira Hadi's understated yet powerful portrayal of Layla was lauded for capturing the quiet strength of Palestinian women who continue to resist and endure under incredible pressure. Outside of the critical circles, audience reactions to No Other Land were deeply emotional. Viewers at international film festivals were particularly moved by the film's visceral impact. Audiences described the film as a wake-up call to the realities of the conflict, with many emphasizing how the movie humanized a political struggle that is often oversimplified or sensationalized in the media. At the film screenings, there were several moments where the entire theater fell silent, as viewers took in the weight of the scenes unfolding on the screen. It was in these moments that the collective silence in the room spoke volumes, as the audience processed the grief, hope, and resilience depicted in the film. However, it wasn't just the immediate reactions that made the film a cultural touchstone. Over time, No Other Land sparked discussions about its themes of displacement, identity, and resistance. The film began to generate a groundswell of fan engagement, particularly on social media, where audiences shared personal stories and reflections about the film's emotional resonance. These discussions often extended beyond the confines of the movie, addressing broader issues of justice, land rights, and the Palestinian experience in the larger context of global political struggles. Long-term engagement, a film that continues to speak. As No Other Land began to make its way across global festivals and eventually into wider distribution, its fanbase grew, and the film's impact deepened. What started as a regional conversation soon became a global one, with activists, film enthusiasts, and cultural critics alike finding connections between the film and their own struggles for justice and dignity. This sustained engagement speaks to the film's ability to tap into universal human themes, making it more than just a political statement but a lasting work of art that continues to resonate long after the credits roll. The film's success in creating a lasting conversation is also reflected in its continued popularity in educational settings. Universities and film schools around the world have used No Other Land as part of their curriculum, examining not just its artistic merits but its profound social and political commentary. It has sparked numerous academic discussions on the role of film in shaping narratives about identity, resistance, and the intersection of art and activism. In this way, the film has become not just a piece of cinema but an ongoing conversation, a story that continues to unfold both in theaters and in the hearts and minds of those who have been touched by it. The strength of the cast's chemistry, the authenticity of the performances, and the visceral emotional engagement it sparked with audiences have made No Other Land a film that transcends its medium, a piece of storytelling that speaks to the present moment and the ongoing struggles for justice and peace. No Other Land, 2024, has emerged as a cinematic landmark, marking not only a pivotal moment in the landscape of contemporary film but also in the ongoing global conversation about identity, resistance, and the personal toll of political struggle. As it continues to ripple through the worlds of film, culture, and activism, its legacy becomes more apparent with each passing year. The film's impact stretches far beyond its narrative, permeating the very fabric of the filmmaking industry, challenging established norms, and sparking critical discussions that go well beyond the confines of the screen. As much as it exists as a powerful and deeply emotional experience for its viewers, No Other Land is also a testament to the power of storytelling and the ability of cinema to challenge, educate, and inspire on an international stage, influencing the genre and filmmaking landscape. In an era where cinema is often constrained by formulaic storytelling and commercial pressures, No Other Land stands as a beacon of artistic ambition and a perfect example of how films can push boundaries while still remaining grounded in emotional truth. At its core, the film is a striking blend of political drama and deeply personal storytelling, positioning it as a bold departure from typical portrayals of conflict-driven narratives. Its success was not just due to the high stakes of the plot or its political relevance, but because of its intricate attention to human detail, offering a complex and layered portrayal of the Palestinian experience in a way that had seldom been captured before on the big screen. In terms of filmmaking, No Other Land revitalized the genre of politically charged dramas by shifting the focus away from the typical depiction of the other or generalized victimhood, toward an intensely personal and humanized portrayal of characters caught in a relentless, often overwhelming struggle for their basic human rights. Its authenticity, the use of real locations, the blending of narrative fiction with the reality of the West Bank, helped establish a new standard for how films could handle sensitive political topics. The decision to film in actual Palestinian villages and refugee camps brought an authenticity to the narrative that could not have been replicated in a studio. Hassan al-Shami's choice to immerse the cast in the environment helped solidify a connection between the actors and the stories they were telling, ensuring that every interaction, every emotional beat, felt grounded in reality. Furthermore, no other land challenged conventional approaches to cinematic storytelling. The long takes, the use of handheld cameras, and the erratic, fragmented editing during moments of conflict helped draw the audience into a visceral, immersive experience. The unflinching depiction of violence, never gratuitous but always integral to the emotional arc of the characters, ushered in a new era of realist filmmaking. It underscored the ability of film to challenge political narratives, while still delivering a deeply personal, human-centered story. In terms of its genre, no other land reshaped the boundaries of what a politically charged drama could be. It demonstrated that films of this nature could be both socially relevant and emotionally engaging without leaning into tired tropes or forced heroism. It eschewed the notion of good versus evil, presenting instead a nuanced portrayal of characters whose actions were motivated by a complex interplay of personal, social, and cultural factors. This more sophisticated approach has since influenced a wave of filmmakers, particularly those tackling contemporary political issues, to focus not just on the surface-level conflict, but on the lives and hearts of the people affected by it. The film's lasting impact on pop culture. The cultural impact of No Other Land has transcended the realm of cinema, igniting discussions that span across art, politics, and identity. For a generation increasingly interested in social justice, human rights, and global solidarity, the film has become an iconic work that continues to resonate far beyond its initial release. The deeply political themes, particularly the portrayal of the Palestinian struggle and the oppression of marginalized peoples, have made No Other Land a powerful tool for educators, activists, and cultural critics. The film has inspired countless discussions, from classroom debates about the political implications of the story to social media movements, where people share their personal connections to its themes of resistance and survival. One of the reasons the film's impact has been so enduring is its ability to foster cross-cultural dialogue. No Other Land presents the Palestinian experience in a way that resonates universally, tapping into the shared human desire for justice and dignity. By showing the resilience of the characters, particularly through Basil's struggle to protect his home and identity, the film has sparked conversations not only about the Palestinian situation but about other struggles for autonomy and self-determination worldwide. The characters' experiences speak to the collective fight for human rights, often prompting audiences to reflect on their own roles in these global struggles. In the broader context of pop culture, No Other Land has sparked a renewed interest in the intersection of film and activism. It has opened doors for other filmmakers to create socially conscious works that tackle important issues head-on, leading to a resurgence of films that prioritize cultural storytelling alongside political commentary. From documentaries to narrative-driven films, the movie's success has demonstrated that audiences crave stories that speak to both the heart and the mind, proving that art can be a powerful vehicle for change. Perhaps one of the most profound cultural impacts has been the way No Other Land has influenced the portrayal of the Middle East in Western cinema. Historically, films about the region have been oversimplified, often reducing complex political and cultural realities into convenient narratives of conflict. No Other Land, however, took the opposite approach, offering a nuanced, authentic, and humanized perspective that has allowed for a more empathetic and multifaceted portrayal of the Palestinian experience. In doing so, it has begun to shift the global conversation about the region, demanding a broader and more accurate representation of Middle Eastern voices. Awards, milestones, and critical reception. No Other Land's critical reception was nothing short of extraordinary, earning numerous accolades and recognition from major international film festivals. Upon its premiere at the Venice International Film Festival in 2024, the film garnered immediate acclaim for its raw emotional depth and its ability to balance political commentary with personal drama. The film went on to win the prestigious Best Screenplay award at Venice, signaling its place in the annals of filmmaking history as a masterwork of storytelling. This win was significant, as it showcased the power of the script, with its careful attention to detail, character development, and the subtle exploration of larger societal issues. The film's performances, particularly those of Omar Al-Khoury and Mira Hadi, were widely praised by critics, earning them nominations at the BAFTA Awards and Cannes Film Festival. Al-Khoury's portrayal of Basel was singled out as a career-defining performance, with critics noting how his nuanced depiction of a man torn between duty and love for his family created a deeply empathetic character that could transcend political borders. Similarly, Hadi's portrayal of Layla, a woman who is both a pillar of strength and a quiet, enduring force in the face of tragedy, was hailed as one of the finest performances of the year, earning her nominations and wins at several prestigious awards. Moreover, no other land broke barriers in terms of recognition for Middle Eastern cinema, paving the way for more films from the region to enter the global conversation. By winning multiple Golden Globe nominations and securing distribution deals in countries that previously had limited access to Palestinian cinema, the film challenged preconceived notions about Arab cinema's global reach. It also played a significant role in opening up international markets to films from underrepresented regions, proving that there was a universal audience for stories grounded in political struggle and human resilience. While its critical reception was widely positive, the film also sparked important conversations about the role of cinema in addressing political issues. Some critics felt that No Other Land was too focused on its artistic approach, questioning whether it could have been more overt in its political messaging. However, the film's ability to engage audiences in a thoughtful, complex conversation about the Palestinian experience, without reducing it to simplistic narratives, has been widely regarded as one of its most significant achievements. It has contributed to a deeper understanding of the nuances involved in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, providing a framework through which people from all walks of life can engage with these issues. Enduring significance. Why it remains relevant. So, why should you dive deeper into the world of cinema? Because films like No Other Land show us the potential of this art form to transform the way we see the world and ourselves. Every frame, every performance, every choice made in the creation of this film is an invitation to understand more, to empathize more, and to be a part of a larger cultural conversation. It challenges us to step outside our own experiences and enter the lives of those who have been marginalized and silenced for far too long. And in doing so, it helps us find connections between our struggles and theirs. As we continue to witness the power of film to shape public opinion and challenge societal norms, we must embrace the idea that cinema is a tool for change. Films like No Other Land prove that storytelling can be a powerful force, one that not only entertains but also educates, empowers, and inspires action. It's a reminder that movies are more than just escapism. They are a reflection of the world around us, and through them, we can engage in important conversations about the issues that shape our lives. If you loved this breakdown of No Other Land, don't just stop here. There are countless other films waiting to be explored, each offering its own unique perspective on the world, its own challenges, and its own victories. So, if you enjoyed diving into this cinematic journey, give this video a thumbs up and subscribe for more in-depth explorations into the world of cinema. Let's keep exploring movies together and keep uncovering the powerful stories that shape the way we see the world. There's always more to discover, and there's always another story waiting to be told. Join us on this adventure, and let's continue to explore the art of filmmaking, one film at a time.